One of the worst experiences in gaming is going through a great story mode, and once you're done, replaying the game again but making different choices, only to realize that your choices didn't really matter or that they're so binary and opposite with no realistic middle ground. That's why today we bring you 10 games where your choices have consequences. Make sure to drop a like on the video before we begin and guess in the comments what is the #1 ranked game on this list. Let's start off with number 10, Telltale Games. Telltale is a game company rather than a single title. The reason we're naming a whole company rather than a single game is because their choice-based game engine is very familiar if you play one of their titles, and the same engine was applied to many different titles. Guardians of the Galaxy, Batman, Game of Thrones were a few of the titles that were episodically released. While the story was very much on rails the whole time, the choices you would make would determine which characters would progress through the story with you and eventually change the ending. While the game-changing choices were mostly binary, there's usually plenty of dialogue choices that would result in different scenes and interactions. The QTE choice-based engine is best exemplified by their most critically acclaimed series, The Walking Dead. The series is complete and split through 4 seasons, which are already released. Sadly, we won't be seeing more games like The Walking Dead or the other Telltale series reaching their end since the company has been recently shut down, and it's a shame because their formula could have been easily applied to other popular franchises. Number 9, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. You don't need this video as a reason to pick up The Witcher 3 and give it a try. The game has an amazing open world with great amounts of fleshed out size content with very little fluff. It's so great that Gwent, the card minigame, was so popular it became a game of its own that you can play for free. The Witcher 3 has a beautifully built world that is super fun to inhabit, and you get easily immersed in it, completely forgetting it's a fantasy game. The game is lower on the list, not because it's lacking in meaningful choices or gray areas when it comes to your decision. Not only do your choices affect the story, outcome, and the world surrounding you, they're not limited to dialogue. Even the way you engage a mission is a choice in and of itself that could change the outcome of the mission and affect the world around you further down the line. Number 8, Skyrim.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Admittedly, Skyrim is a bit more binary when it comes to choices in a game, and they do sometimes lack nuance. Luckily, the way you change the world around you and the choices you can make to affect Skyrim offsets the binary picks you can make. Joining the Imperial Legion, you can crush the rebellion and kill their leader who threatens the political landscape of Skyrim. You can also join the rebellion, overthrow the ruling class, and bring revolution to Skyrim. The way you engage with some side content in the game, like the guilds or just helping an average citizen, can change the world locally as well. Number 7, Fallout Games. Maybe with the exception of Fallout 76, the franchise is well known for the amount of meaningful choices it brings to the player. Just like Skyrim, Fallout is a Bethesda game, much like Skyrim, but the fallout of your choices, no pun intended, are more apparent. On top of the multiple endings, you also have variations to those endings, and based on the choices made along the way, the entire world is different for it with a bit more nuance than Skyrim. A lot of the missions themselves have choice-based outcomes, so it's not only about the macro decisions. It's really sad to see how Fallout 76 destroyed the reputation for such a great RPG franchise, and hopefully we'll see more of it down the line. Number 6, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. If you would look at the game, you will clearly see it's one of the early PlayStation 2 titles, judging by the graphics. But if you take a look at the single-player mode of this game, the amount of choices and outcomes it offers outperforms a lot of the recent RPG titles out there right now. While it's a great wrestling game, you absolutely don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy it or appreciate the deep campaign mode that it offers. You can inhabit any male superstar on the roster, even ones that you create, and carve your own path. You can go for a world title, tag team championships, or embroil yourself in many of the ridiculous storylines you'd expect to find in a wrestling game. It's a shame that the scope of the game and the amount of freedom it offers didn't carry on to future WWE games, which ever since have become on a rails story mode with meaningless choices or just an unplayable mess like WWE 2K20, which resulted in the next game in the series being delayed for a whole year.
Tapping through, looking for the figure four, Can she break? She does. Figure eight.
Nikki Bella's reign is in dire straits right now.
Before we move on to number 5, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel a lot. Number 5, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
You're the expert in quiet.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason. You should know that.
Much like the previous game on the list, while the Call of Duty campaigns can be great, they're mostly on rails, with barely any choices to make, and the ones you do are pretty meaningless. This is not the case for 2 Call of Duty games, and Cold War is one of them. The character you create during the campaign would elicit different reactions and dialogue from your squad members. Choices you would make in certain missions would affect the final outcome of the story during the epilogue. Same goes for the mysteries you need to solve along the way and how you solve them. On top of that, you have 3 different endings and a lot of freedom in how you choose to complete the missions in-game. Black Ops Cold War is the first game in Call of Duty's history where the campaign and the zombies mode are the main selling points instead of the multiplayer. Number 4, Heavy Rain. If you're familiar with any of the Telltale games, then Heavy Rain would provide a similar experience, but with much higher quality. The game was formerly a PlayStation 3 exclusive, but you can actually get it on Steam today, along with Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human, which were created by the same developer. Heavy Rain is a great pick for this list because consequences are a huge part of the game. Unlike most games with more than one ending, Heavy Rain has different variants to each ending as well. Number 3, Alpha Protocol. Alpha Protocol was actually put in one of our previous videos for games that need a remake, so you should check it out at the end of this video. The reason for that was the endless amount of bugs in the game, the terrible AI, and the unstable nature of the game. The reason we want to see it remade is because when it comes to choices that matter, few games do it like Alpha Protocol. This spy RPG brings a great story experience. The first choice you would make is the character's background, which will lead to different dialogue options in the story. Much like every other game in the list, you have meaningful dialogue or action choices that will lead you to multiple endings with different variants to each ending. Unlike the other games on the list, the order which you go through your missions will lead you down different paths and would result in different scenes. Buying dossiers in-game will also unlock additional dialogue choices for you to use. The scope of the game and the very unique setting would have been an easily 10 out of 10 game if it wasn't riddled with bugs and so much inconsistency. Number 2, Until Dawn. Until Dawn is the epitome of consequence. When you have a mechanic in-game called the butterfly effect, you know that your choices matter. Until Dawn is a horror PS4 exclusive that you can actually play on PC as well if you use the PlayStation streaming service. At this point in the video, you better be sure there are multiple endings with a lot of variants. Each choice in-game could mean the life or death of each character, and you'd have to carefully make all the right choices. If you want each and every character to come out alive in the end of the game, you could also end up with all of them dead or a mix and match of them. Everything in the game is determined by your choices and how well you perform, and that's why it's second place on this list. Number 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Remember when I said that Call of Duty had 2 games where your choices have consequences? Well, this is the second one. For the first time in the game's history, you can actually fail some of the mission's objectives and end up with different outcomes. You also had strike missions, which were side missions you can take or completely ignore as you progress through the game. Choosing to take them on would give you the option to fix the missions you did fail and create a better world at the end of the game. Black Ops 2 is number 1 on this list because while it's not as large scale when it comes to the choices or consequences like the other games, it has the greatest action experience compared to the other games, which creates the perfect balance. If you want consequences, then this is the game for you because you get 8 different endings with several scenes that sometimes have 9 different variants based strictly on your choice. What is your favorite game with choices and consequences? Make sure to write it in the comments, even if it's not part of this video. On your way down there, hit the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our future videos. Thank you guys for watching, good luck, and have fun.